Hi, I'm Ashley Simmons, Facilities Mechanical Technician at The Ohio State University, and today we're going to go over bearing lubrication. Here are a few different styles of bearings you'll find on campus. This is a pillow block bearing. They come in various sizes. These are typically found on fans. If they have a little cap on them, make sure that you put the cap back on after you're done lubricating. This is a flange bearing, which is also found across campus on fans. This is a sealed bearing. This is all found on pumps and motors. And this is an unsealed bearing, found on pumps and motors as well. Before we begin, here are some of the tools you're going to need for bearing lubrication. Lockout, tagout, safety glasses, gloves, a socket set, rags, your grease gun, and grease. Today we're going to be lubricating the bearings on this heating hot water pump, on the pump and the motor side of the pump. Typically you would want to lubricate it while the pump is running, but because the guard is in the way of the grease Zerk, we're going to have to lock out, tag out the pump, remove the guard, and then be able to grease it. Okay, let's go ahead and get this guard off. So before you begin greasing your pump, you should really know what type of bearings you have, or what size bearings you have in it, because it's equally as important to know that you could destroy your pump if you over grease it as if you under grease it. There are several charts online, if you know the size of your bearing, how much grease you're supposed to be putting in. If you take the information off of the motor tag, you can put it online, as well as the pump tag, and find the size of bearing that you're working with. Today we're working with a bearing about this size. So as you can see, there's not much room in between there. What you should also know is that when bearings are installed, whoever installs them usually packs them full of grease. So this is not an empty reservoir. It already has grease in it. So you only want to give it like 2 or 3 pumps of grease when you're re-greasing it. As far as maintenance schedules go and your intervals, motors are typically every 500 run hours or 3 months. It's best just to follow whatever your maintenance schedule is, or your preventive maintenance schedule. With pumps, it all varies depending on the size and what it's pumping, what it's doing. So make sure you follow your manufacturer's recommendations when greasing your pumps. Before you begin greasing also, you want to make sure that you remove any caps, and then also clean off all of your Zerk fittings, because you don't want to put any grease down into your bearings. It's also important to note that you don't want to add too much grease, because if you over grease, it could lead to premature failure also. In between the motor and the pump, you have your coupling. With the coupling, because we can't grease this while it's running, it's a good idea that while you're greasing it, to spin it in the direction that it should be turning. So you can use the coupling to spin it. After you're all done lubricating, it's important to wipe away any excess grease and to replace any caps if you've taken them off. Okay, once you've lubricated your bearings and you're ready to put your guard back on, go ahead and do so by getting your guard. Put your guard back on. And then you can remove your lockout tagout and fire it back up. Another style of pump we have across campus is one that requires oil opposed to grease. The Reservoir works the same as the Zerk does. The Zerk carries the grease to the bearing. This Reservoir, you just open the flap and you put the oil in and it delivers the oil to the bearing. When you do your preventive maintenance, you just want to make sure you add a couple more drops to it so that way you maintain your freshness with your bearings. Thank you for watching this video on bearing lubrication. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, contact your lead person or your supervisor.